Hello and welcome. I am Adri Gregan, and I am back for Frieren Beyond Journey's End. Finally back, I should say. I apologize that the last one was nearly 2 weeks ago, and I'm only getting down to it, but more than that, I want to thank you for your patience. It's been a pretty trying uh, year, really, ever since 2026, or at the end of 2025. If you've been following along, you probably get the gist of it. And especially lately, as I've been overcoming the sickness called despair. Let's see if anyone gets that reference. I'm trying to get more consistent with it. I'm trying to get back on it. And more than that, I'm trying to get my energy levels back to the point I want them to be for these episodes, for these videos. And also, it's a little bit erratic because of my current housing situation. I'm living with my parents. But starting next week or so, I'll be moving out to where my dad's house is, and there's a lot less going on there. So I should have a lot more time to record and a lot less going on to drain my energy. So hopefully at that point, I'll be able to get this out with a lot more consistency, and maybe we can even retake our daily schedule at some point, which is definitely the goal. So yeah, thank you for your patience as I get this ready, as I ramp back up, and I hope you're looking forward to this one. Before we get in, though, obviously there's quite a bit I want to talk about regarding last episode and the comments. Now, this first part isn't quite going to be a full comment spotlight. However, I do owe an apology to the goat of the episode, of the arc, and quite possibly of the season, Denken. Last episode was really the Denken episode. Before that, we've of course seen him conniving and showing off his intelligence and his ability to deduce what's going on around him, and also him like laying out different parts of plans and utilizing the pieces he has available to him really, really well. So credit where credit's due. And at the end of the last episode, especially, he proved his mettle by engaging in fisticuffs, despite having no mana left, against other tired people to get their stele. And it seems he succeeded. So absolute respect to this man. And the apology I owe to him is how I treated him in my post episode discussion, especially his performance against Frieren. Now, I would say the main issue I had and the blinders that were over me, preventing me from seeing how incredible Denken truly is, it amounts to what I like to call the Saitama effect. For the two of you who haven't seen One Punch Man, first of all, do that immediately. Click off this video if you have to and watch One Punch Man season 1, then read the manga. It's kind of ridiculous to expect Denken to really put up much of a fight against Frieren here, isn't it? That's not to say that Denken is not powerful and he's not capable, and I'll talk more about this later in the prep. Before getting into the episode, before actually getting into the fight, my expectations were way higher than they really should have been. I think I was looking at it too much from a story perspective, where this is the second major hurdle that Frieren has to face, right? First was Aura, and now it's Denken. But considering that Aura was a demon like commander who is far older than the hero's journey that initially had Aura defeated, and Denken is of a later generation who probably wasn't even born yet at the time of Frieren's, I should say Himmel's journey. These two are obviously not in the same field, right? Denken and Aura. And Aura really didn't stand a chance against Frieren, so the fact that I expected Denken to do fare much, if any, better is a little bit ridiculous on my part. I guess the itch I had was that he seemed so confident, yet was clearly proven to be quite capable and intelligent. So I was expecting that he had some sort of plan to deal with the person he knew was the mage of Himmel's party all that time ago, of these legends. Now, I'm not going to take any of that back. The part about him being like really smart and really capable. I overestimated not just him, but also the information he had available to him. Frieren was, of course, the mage who traveled alongside Himmel, but she was just that, a mage, an accessory, if you would. Accessory, not in the terms of like objectification, accessory like accessory to murder. She aided Himmel in his quest, especially in the legends. That's likely how she was engraved into history, as a support, basically, as a mage, right? Mages are generally support. So already in the legends, there's not really anything that says Frieren is this incredibly overpowered figure who could probably single-handedly take down the Demon Lord. But even if the legends were regaling Frieren's exploits and her incredible powers, it would still miss the most important thing, right? Aura was personally saw how strong the heroes were, and she didn't know either, because the true power of Frieren is not something inscribed in legends. In fact, it is explicitly meant to avoid notice. It's her hiding her mana, right? So Denken has no real reason to believe Frieren is as old as she is, let alone that she's as good at hiding her power, her mana pool, as she is, because it has clearly been proven in the show to be an exceptional and almost unbelievable ability. And if it weren't for Flamme, then Frieren wouldn't have it at all, right? So, yeah, it's not reasonable to expect him to have all this information that he clearly didn't have. And the mark of an intelligent character, for those of you who are curious, is not about how much information they have, right? Anybody can gather information. Anybody can hit a textbook. Anybody can cram knowledge into their brain. The true mark of an intelligent, a clever, a quick-witted character, a brilliant character if you would, is their ability to use the information they have to synthesize it into something actionable and something meaningful. This is clearly what Denken's been doing this entire arc. He's been making several different actionable and meaningful deductions and plans, and he's proven himself to be no fool, and his encounter with Frieren was not an exception to that. It was simply a blind spot, something that he could not have known about Frieren, right? Yet despite that, he really did do his best. Because let's talk about his actual strategy. This is one of the key points, and a lot of the things I'm talking about, one of you is going to recognize a lot of them because I'm ripping this straight from Alex's guidebook, his long comment particularly. I'm not going to list it here. It's not the common spotlight of the day because there's something else I wanted to really talk about here, and also because Alex's comment is just too long to put on the screen, but definitely check out last episode if you haven't already. Check out Alex's comment, like it, and read the whole thing because it's incredible and it's so much more than I could do justice for. But Alex, shout out to you. You're one of the OGs, and a lot of these points I'm bringing up about this last episode is going to be taken from your thoughts, so thank you for that. Now, Denken lacked a lot of information, and yet, like I said, the true mark of a brilliant character is their ability to synthesize with the information they have and come up with an actionable and meaningful plan, a plan of attack. Denken does this perfectly. He does the best he could against Frieren. He summons a massive fire tornado, which would realistically annihilate any other person in this exam we've seen, right? It would absolutely overwhelm Fern and Era. It would... Weirbel wouldn't really be able to do anything because it outranges them, and it also outranges Ubel, so no one really would stand a chance against this thing. Realistically, neither would Frieren, right? She clearly is capable. She's clearly using a lot of basic spells, but one of the biggest exploits of magic in this world, and especially of these simple defensive magics, is that they are very taxing and very limited. We learn as early as, I think it was like episode 3, that Fern needs to learn how to use her defensive spells in certain places in order to block attacks to minimize the strenuous nature of these spells and to maximize her efficiency. And that's what she does, right? All characters, really, who are using defensive spells from that point on, they are using it sparingly. Denken's Fire Tornado is brilliant, right? It's massive, it's flashy, and most importantly, it's incredibly mana draining. And it's impressive given what we learned last episode, particularly about the magic in Frieren. This is a world of visualization and of very limited mana, right? This isn't a world where everyone flashes around atomic nuke level explosions and Megumines are running around everywhere. It's not that kind of world. You have to conserve your resources, and mana is a resource. Despite that, Denken puts out this incredible display, this fire tornado that would overwhelm anybody, any reasonable person he'd face against. It probably is the reason why he was drained out of mana like immediately afterwards, because it used everything he had, but he had to finish this quickly, because Frieren was clearly not playing around. and not someone to be underestimated. So he uses this fire tornado, a massive, long range, completely enveloping attack that forces Frieren to use her defensive spell all around her, which is the, of course, least efficient way, right? It's the biggest drawback of these defensive spells. If you have to do that, you are in serious trouble. Any reasonable foe would be defeated by this. But Denken's not the only one who realizes that they can't underestimate their opponent, because immediately after this, I need to mute this, she is able to survive it. He tries to continue to overwhelm her, but she decides to come up close, probably using a speed spell to get up in his face and blast him, because she can't drag this on either, right? So they're both kind of on the same page, really, with this fight. And Denken really does do the best with the information he has available. It's just not enough, because, of course it's not. It's Frieren. So massive props there to Denken. And there's one last prop I need to give him, because as you can see, there's a whole lot of them, which is why I started this off with an apology to him. One of the bigger complaints I levied last time was the fact that Denken was clearly very confident. He seemed to be sure of himself that he could handle Frieren, and that they were in a good enough position that Richter wouldn't have to kill the kids either. To be fair, it was less pragmatic, I think, in that case, and more just him not being okay with killing kids, which is completely fair, obviously. I don't think that's a point that needs to be defended by me. He seemed to be sure of himself that he could deal with Frieren, and he also didn't seem like the type who was overconfident or cocky. So I criticized him for that. The connection I didn't make was that in this very episode, we learn that magic is a world of imagination, of your internal mentality becoming an external force. This reminds me, it feels reminiscent of JJK a little bit with what's going on right now, where I guess it's not going on right now, but it's just something I've been talking about more, where the domains are really just manifestations of your desire to change the world and of your own inner world, basically. With Frieren, though, the magic is kind of like Yaoyorozu in My Hero Academia, where you really need to understand the spell you're casting in order to understand how and be able to cast it, right? Another thing that Alex says is that the reason why there's this like massive tome for like a single spell in this world, it seems really weird at first, but when you realize how much visualization plays a role in the magic system here, it makes sense, because you probably need a whole book to explain how you're going to summon a freaking fire tornado, assuming this is a single spell. It might even be combining spells, but if it is a single spell, good luck trying to visualize that. And that's why goddess magic is so crazy, right? Because healing people is not an easy thing to do. Our bodies are phenomenal. They're complex. So imagining the healing process, not just a wound closing, is no easy feat, which is likely why goddess magic is such a difficult thing to adopt, let's say. So when Denken goes against Frieren here, and he says, I will be able to take her out, I will handle her, it's not overconfidence, it's not hubris. It's simply him playing along with the rules of the world, right? If he says, I will try my best, or I'll see what I can do, his magic will follow his mentality, and it will not be as effective. If he is confident, even if he fakes it till he makes it, and says, I can defeat her for certain, then his perception will enhance his own magic. It's self-actualization, right? It's a self-fulfilling prophecy, in a sense. That's what this magic is. So it wasn't hubris. It was necessary, I guess is what I'm trying to say. So yeah, massive props to Denken. He really did the best with what he had. It just wasn't enough, because how could it be? This is Frieren we're talking about. And it's with that I want to move on to today's comment of the day. This is from a regular in the Frieren series, Darwin Award winner. And it's one of his shorter comments, actually. I think it's probably his shortest comment I've seen. It's like an actual analysis paragraph. I really like this. Darwin basically uses this entire comment to talk about Frieren breaking the barrier. Not about the technicals of that. That's, once again, Alex, who mentioned that it wasn't brute force, but it was a very precise strike, basically, a almost weaving through the defenses of the spell to not break it with overwhelming power, but with basically a loophole, finding its weakness, kind of like breaking a massive glass pane by hitting it on the corner. Darwin focuses more on why she did. Now, at a first glance, it seems obvious. She did it to give Kane a boost, right? Because Kana was struggling quite a bit against Richter. Obviously, they didn't really stand a chance as things were. But if they had access to the water of the rain pouring outside the barrier, then that would change the tides, right? It would allow Frieren to help her little teammates without really intervening directly. But it can't be that. Nor can it be things like getting Seria's attention or catching a Stila, because all of these things happened after Frieren started analyzing the barrier. And we know this because previously Senza said that someone was analyzing the barrier the previous day. That's obviously before Frieren knows Seria's involved, right? Because she probably still doesn't know. They didn't even have a plan to catch the Stila yet, and Kana couldn't need this help against Richter because they were fighting today, obviously, so it couldn't be any of those. So we have to think back to why Frieren would be analyzing the barrier. Now, you could say it was just she was curious and she wanted to see if she could because she's a curious type. But there's evidence that the reason is much simpler and much more wholesome, really. And if you've read this comment, if you haven't, first of all, again, go back to last episode, read it, or just read it over here. But as Darwin points out, Frieren loves magic. One connection that she shared with Denken before they started fighting is because they both have the joy of discovering magic deep in their hearts. And it's why neither of them are enticed by Zeria's allure of giving any one spell, right? It's the search for the quest. It's the love of magic. It's the love of the game, if you would, that makes them want to discover and learn more about magic. Even Zeria kind of backs this up a little bit in the latter half of the episode. When Frieren breaks the spell, Zeria says that that's why I can't leave, because even after all this time, there are still more things being discovered. There's still more to learn. There's more excitement, more fun. The fun never ends. Frieren just showed her that. And it's a sentiment we've seen several times throughout this series. It's something that was hinted at as early as episode 2, right? When Frieren asks Fern why she learns magic, she doesn't answer explicitly, but we see a moment where Fern is summoning some magic butterflies, and Hyder, I haven't said that name in so long, is amazed. And Fern is amazed too. And the implication is that she is just in love with the beauty and the wonder of magic. A love that Frieren shares, clearly. So why did Frieren break the barrier? Well, yes, it would help Kana win. But more importantly, it would let Kana stretch her wings. It would let magic be free, as Frieren puts it. Because of the barrier, Kana can't, right? She's very limited with her magic. And that's no fun. So after Frieren spoke with Kana and they realized that the water, the main thing that would help Kana do what she wanted really with her spells, was being protected by the barrier, Frieren started analyzing the barrier to try to break it in order to basically free her wings, right? Kana's wings. It just so happens that at the time, Kana was also fighting against Richter and losing a battle. So it doubles down as a way of subtly helping her without, again, directly intervening. And that's beautiful. I think that's really beautiful. And it also harkens back to why I love soft magic, even though I mainly work and I tend to appreciate hard magic more. And Frieren's is kind of a blend, but it's pretty confidently in the soft magic system. where the magic isn't like a science. It is still studied in Frieren, obviously, but its main purpose is to be an object of wonder, right? Something to constantly surprise. And that's the whole point, right? Why Zeria brought it up, because there's never a dull moment, really. So the reason I love soft magic is because of the wonder. It's because it kind of harkens back to childhood. Because as children, we're all amazed, right, by the world. We're all amazed by this world that is frankly quite amazing. There's a lot to be amazed by it. I don't think that's a child's ignorance or any shortcoming of theirs to be amazed by the world. I think, if anything, it's a shame that adults aren't. Because the world doesn't get any less magical. We just grow used to it. Oftentimes, I hear people say that things were better before, right? When people are reflecting on their childhoods, however many years ago, when middle aged or elderly people are reflecting back, they'll say, the good old days. And I don't think they're necessarily wrong, but I do think that their vision is colored by their youth. Because realistically, the world didn't fundamentally change from the measly decades between their childhood and where they are now, right? The world didn't change. I mean, the human world changed, but the fundamental world is basically still the same. And even society itself, with with however much it changes, it's amazing how similar it is to how it was thousands of years ago. That didn't really change. The thing that changed was the person who was viewing it. When you're a child, everything is amazing or terrifying. Everything shocks us because we want to learn more, because we don't have that experience. And as good as experience is, the more experience we get, the more we see, the more we discover, the less we think there is to be discovered, and the less wonder we feel looking at the things we've already discovered. Because the wonder is in seeing something new, right? That's why humans are always trying to push the bounds and discover new things, because there's wonder in novelty. Inherently, I should say. There can be wonder in things that aren't novel, but we just don't feel it quite the same. So naturally, as everything becomes less novel, as we get older and we experience more and more, and we iterate more on things we've experienced in the past, that wonder fades. So it's not the world that was better when you were a child. It's not the world that was more wonderful when you were a child. Is that as a child, you saw the world as more wonderful. That's why I really like this comment and this recurring theme in Frieren and of soft magic in general. Because it kind of reignites that spark, right? That wonder, that fantastic awe of something you've never seen before, something beyond your imagination. For people like Frieren and Denken, discovering new spells is a journey more worthwhile than the actual destination. When it comes to Kana here, and when it comes to Fern and her love of magic, it's just simply the wonder, right? It's the wonder of being free, of stretching your wings, and of testing the limits, not for the sake of power, not for the sake of even knowledge necessarily, but just for the love of the magic itself. The irony is not lost on me that the two examples I gave, Kana and Fern, are both technically children still, or at the very most young adults. I think Kana is still a child as well, teenager. So yeah, maybe they still do have that wonder. Maybe they'll lose it. But that doesn't explain Frieren, does it? It doesn't explain Denken. Both of them are quite old, some of the older people we've met in the show. And they still have that wonder. So I would say the point is that it doesn't really matter how old you are. The only thing that matters is whether you are willing to re-embrace that wonder, rekindle those ashes, relight that flame, and rediscover the wonder of the world that never went anywhere. you just walked away from it. I think that's beautiful, and it really, really increases my appreciation that Frieren is presenting for the genre, really, of fantasy and of soft magic and of magic itself. Because that's another thing, right? As we get older, we start to become jaded and we start to look down on magic. We start to prefer realism because we leave magic behind in childhood. Or at least we try to convince ourselves we do. I don't really have a conclusion here. I just wanted to kind of talk about that a little bit, and I hope that you are also watching this and rekindling that spark, that wonder. Not just in magic, not just in fantasy, but in the world around you. Take a look around. Maybe watch some squirrels as they scamper about. Maybe watch some birds as they squawk around. Whatever it is, just enjoy the world around you because it's fantastic. So, you're probably wondering what I'm doing on the ending screen of the episode, not at the beginning. Well, you're probably not wondering, it's probably pretty obvious. I forgot to hit record, and I lost the episode reaction again. Thankfully, in my defense, it's been a little while since that's happened, but it is kind of slap in the face after like 2 weeks of not uploading an episode. We lose the reaction, so you have to wait even longer to watch another one. But it was a really, really great episode. There was a little bit of commentary, but the thing you missed most of all was just me smiling like an idiot the whole time because it was great. It was exactly what I was expecting from this episode. Just a great cool down and a way for characters to interact outside of battle and to get to know them a little better, and also to get some Stark. I'm glad we started off with what I was hoping we would get. But the reason we start off with Stark is in particular to reintroduce us to the dynamic of Stark and Fern, particularly particularly Fern's disappointment in Stark. Their relationship really can be summed up in the words, "I'm not mad, I'm just disappointed." And I continue to find it absolutely incredible how such a simplistic and undetailed expression can convey so much information. It really is amazing how much we can glean from body language. Like, you can just tell, right? She just has this look of pity, of disappointment. It's evening. You were sleeping this whole time, weren't you? And you've done nothing with your day. You stayed up all night drinking juice. And then she has the cutest little pew, 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 pew. It is so cute. It's so cute. And it's also not the last time that she will be angry. And it's also not the last time they will make it up to her by getting her food. But before then, we get a little bit of Richter here, which is really cool. I love seeing him. He seems to be some sort of like magical technician using his magic to help fix doohickeys and stuff like that. And it's precious. It's really great seeing these characters outside of these fights and seeing how they interact with people and just seeing what their daily lives are like, right? And this is just a great example of that. Who would have guessed that Richter, this middle-aged man who's not afraid of killing kids, still has his own kid inside of him? I mean, I guess anyone could guess that because it's not new for somebody to have an inner child, but the fact that he still decides to pocket it, he doesn't just like toss it aside or something. I'm sure he's gonna have to figure out what to do with it. He's gonna have to find a time to eat it when nobody's looking. But these little bits of character, these little bits of showing that these people are not just caricatures, but that they are actual people who have lives outside of the exam, right? Outside of battle. There's more to Richter than being a pragmatic child killer for the sake of, God, that makes him sound so bad. There's a lot more to him, right? He's running this shop where he fixes things and he's using his magic to help people. And he has these cute dynamics with these people who are probably regulars at his shop. And he likes sugar cubes because, of course, he does. And that's not going to change with age, right? People's tastes can change with time. I'm not saying they can't, but oftentimes we convince ourselves that our tastes have changed because of time. And that's just as equally not true, isn't it? Tastes can change, but they don't change as often as we like to make it believe. Like I was talking about with the pre-ep prep, which I guess to you guys was just a few seconds ago. As we get older, we start turning our noses up to magic, to cartoons, to jumping around and acting like a kid, because acting like a kid is something to be frowned upon. And despite what I've said and what I'm going to say, I actually don't entirely disagree with this. I think there should be a some sort of line drawn between acting like a child and an adult. I think there are ways you should dress, ways you should carry yourself that distinguish you from being a child and an adult. I think those are things that you should aspire to be and things that you should aspire to carry into your adult life, that you are not a child anymore. And I think we too often neglect ourselves and our desires in pursuit of being an adult. Far too often, we have these things that we like as kids, whether it's a pina colada, virgin, of course, whether it's playing in the sandbox, whether it's creating stories, whether it's going out with your friends and reenacting your favorite video game, like Pokemon Mystery Dungeons was mine. These little things that we never gave a second thought at now suddenly fill us with embarrassment. And as I've said, I don't entirely disagree with it, but I think it's also a massive shame that we almost inevitably end up burying that child. We end up pushing them deep down. I'm not a kid anymore. I don't enjoy sugar cubes, even though I, of course, do. I'm more sophisticated. I don't drink margaritas. Now I drink old fashions. I'm not going to play pretend anymore. I have a job. I have a real life. I can't engage in these things I used to enjoy and probably still do. But in order to cope with the world, I'm going to pretend like I don't care anymore. I've grown out of it. Lying down on the floor with your dog, being rowdy in a restaurant, all these little things of childhood that we try to disassociate from. And I guess the reason why I want to point this out, despite also mentioning that I don't necessarily think these are bad, is because I don't think it has to be all one or the other. I don't think you have to either discard the things that make you a child and turn your nose at people who act like that, or be a child, jump around and make a mess in public and just be rowdy and disrespectful. I don't think you need one or the other. I think you can leave your childhood behind while also being honest with yourself and appreciating the things you appreciate, even if that's a sugar cube, even if that's lying on the floor with your dog. I think you can act like an adult and not like a child while not discarding the parts of yourself or disowning the parts of yourself that are more childish. I think both can be true. Now, that's a level of nuance that a lot of people, a lot of adults today are unwilling to entertain. And I think that's a shame. But I think for us who enjoy thinking about things and analyzing things and thinking about life, I think it is a very achievable goal to act like an adult and appreciate the child inside of you. To Richter's credit, he does to a degree. He tries to go against it, he says, I'm not a child, which, yeah, I mean, you don't have to say that, you can just take them, but he does end up pocketing them, so he'll probably enjoy them later at the very least. It's nice that he doesn't throw them away and pretend like, no, I don't like these anymore. And he doesn't say no, right? He doesn't respond here because he knows she's right, and he's not gonna defend himself that much when it's just not true, or when it is true in this case. And that's wonderful. I'm glad. It's important to be in touch with with your child, with your younger self, because they never really go anywhere as much as we try to push them down. And the more we try to push them down, the more issues they bring up later. The more you try to cover up the mold in your bathroom, the bigger it's going to grow, right? That's not to associate your your childish self with mold, but it's the idea that if you suppress it, it will not go away because you and that child are here for the long haul. So you might as well get comfortable. after that, we have Richter meeting up with his old teammates, and it really is really cute that Lawfin is very much like Denken's little granddaughter. Uh, Yo, man, brought these for me. I'm not sharing. And she's just eating her little like donut things, her bagels, and it's super cute. It's super cute. It's this character acting, right? It's these little things that just don't immediately feel like something that's like important to the plot, right? The plot. Frieren's not really a show about an overarching plot, right? So it's really more about the characters, and it's more about the passage of time and how these perspectives clash and intertwine. So little things like this that don't seem to be immediately relevant to like, oh, winning the first class exam or learning about how these characters fight, but build them out as people and as people with perspectives, valuable perspectives that we can learn a lot from. I think it's great, and I think it's why I love this episode so much. Seeing Land appreciate these little kitties and again feign disinterest, right? But he clearly found them worth mention, and that's pretty cool. I like that. Hi, editing Gregan here. While I was editing this video, I realized how much I like brushed off this scene, but I just kind of wrote it off as like a cute little moment. But there's actually a little bit more to it than I assumed there was. Actually, now that I'm taking a second look at it, this is kind of an interesting moment for Land. He's seeing this lost little kitten and moves forward to help it, but then sees presumably the mother, the kitten run over, and they start walking away. They notice him, and then they run away. And he breathes what seems to be a sigh of relief and maybe a little bit of sadness because they're running away from him. But this is really cool, and I'm kind of sad that I didn't really comment on this because there's a couple things you can take from this. It's really cool that Land is the kind of guy who's going to go help the kitten. I mean, the kitten would probably run away from him, but his first instinct was to probably seems to be to go help the kitten. And the relief he feels when he sees that the mother found the kitten and ran away is it's really interesting. It initially my thought was like, I wonder if there's like some parent issues where he sees the mother with the cat and it's just like, I don't have a family figure like that. And I guess it could be something like that, but I think it's more just showing him wanting to help a lost kitten and being relieved that even though they ran away, that they're happier now, which is a really cute little moment and something I wanted to bring up here. Though also while I'm here, my today is just the day of issues with recording. Just like how I forgot to record the episode. Well, not just like it. It's kind of a good thing almost that I didn't record because I also forgot to check up on my storage. So when your storage gets full, OBS uh doesn't really tell you. It just stops like recording your recording your computer. In my case, the picture in picture, it stops recording that and it just kind of sticks on there. So you'll see, I'll show you on my editing here. So it's stuck on the you like those, don't you, for the entire rest of the video. So I'm just gonna edit in screenshots. I tried right here, as you can see, editing in like me pretending to still be scrolling through the episode, but that's a pain in the ass. So you can see here, there's a little hint of how long this video is. It's posted, you can see how long it is in your runtime. But this is not something that's going to work for me. So I'm just going to be using screenshots from here on, and you're going to see that. So it's probably not going to really change the quality of the video at all, but just in case you're curious about that. Anyways, back to prior Gregan, I guess. The framing of her like hiding behind him so we don't get to see her till he starts walking. And she's like out of focus there too. That's cool. Yeah, you can see you're just barely there out of focus. It's the little things. It's not groundbreaking by any stretch of the imagination, but it's the little things that are important to recognize, right, and give credit to, because if we don't, then we lose the wonder of the world. And this is a really interesting conversation. Probably one of, if not the most interesting conversations of the episode, because we learn a lot about Übel and about her magic. You don't think a lot about killing people, do you? Why didn't you kill Weirbel? You had the opportunity, right? And she mentions that him wanting to remain human caused her to empathize with him. It made me want to avoid putting off the final blow. And then she uses his binding spell, a spell that binds whoever I'm looking at. The magic a person specializes in is strongly related to their life and nature. Empathizing with somebody allows me to use their spells. What an interesting concept. Especially after last episode, where we learned that magic is about visualization. The type of mage who casts spells without understanding the principles behind them. And he looks down on her for that. Calls her dim-witted because she uses magic by feel. That's super interesting. There are so many things that I want to talk about here it's hard to find a place to start. For one, there's this callback to empathy, with which we brought up with the demons, right? They are effectively evolved monsters, enhanced monsters that utilize empathy to trick humans and to capture their prey, to ensnare their prey. Ever since demons were introduced, like over 10 episodes ago, Frieren has kind of set out a cautious stance of almost condemning empathy, or at least excessive empathy as the default. Now, I disagree with this personally. I think empathy should be the default. And I also recognize the danger of it. I recognize the cautionary tale that Frieren's putting up through its demons, that it can and will be manipulated and exploited. And I guess in a way, this is kind of that too, right? Because Übel is a bit of a monster herself. She may be human, but she enjoys killing humans. Perhaps Übel's very introduction, her very character, is meant to blur the lines between humans and demons. Even though she's a fellow human, she weaponizes empathy. But not the empathy of the others, empathy of her own. She empathizes with somebody and is able to recreate their spells, despite not being able to visualize it, or perhaps because of her magic. I don't know. Maybe this is a hint at her life. Maybe she is just an empathetic person, but that would kind of go in contrast with killing them, right? There's these weird contradictions within her, and it's really hard to get a grasp on her, especially with her like perfect poker face that she always has on. You can never really tell what she's thinking. On top of that, and yes, this conversation is going to be jumping around everywhere because, like I said, there's too many things to bring up here that I won't possibly be able to organize them all. It also starts to recontextualize why she doesn't kill people immediately. Because the more she converses with them and the more she talks with them, the more banter they have and the more interactions they have, the more she'll be able to empathize and the better she'll probably be able to replicate their spells. That's so interesting. It's more than just sadism, even though I'm sure that plays a part of it. But I think the most interesting thing of all here is actually separated from everything else I've been mentioning before. Because there's one thing that people often take for granted in anime and in shows in general that it's important to keep in mind. Every piece of dialogue in a story is spoken by an unreliable narrator. For those unaware, unreliable narrator is generally used in like third-person limited stories or stories where the narrator is a character, oftentimes the main character. We take what they say to be the truth, but there's no proof that that is the case. And more often than not, it is safe to go with the assumption that we should not take their narration as truth. We should only take narration as truth when it's not coming from a character, or when it seems to be coming from the very world itself. But in dialogue, it's always coming from a character, right? We, as viewers, tend to take dialogue as exposition, but that's not really true. And really good, clever writers exploit this. They assume that the reader will assume their dialogue is truth, and they will lead viewers along, lead them to conclusions that the author wants the viewers to reach. Meanwhile, this character was maybe just lying, or maybe they were telling a half-truth. Dialogue is not exposition. Everyone has a reason for saying what they're saying. So it's entirely possible that all of those other ideas I presented before this were all just strung along, were me being strung along by you, Bell. There's no real way to know yet. No way to know for sure, at least. Like all dialogue, that comment about empathy should be taken with a grain of salt. So it will. I'll keep that in mind as I move forward. In the meantime, there's also this comment she made, which is interesting. The fact that a magic that people specialize in is related to their life and their nature. This reminds me a lot of MHA and of a lot of modern stories where stories that have a certain like technique or ability for each individual that obviously that variance can vary generally bring up the question of nature versus nurture and of the chicken and the egg. Nature versus nurture, of course. Nature, what you're born with, your genetics, versus nurture, what environment you grow up in. The chicken and the egg being whether somebody's personality affects their powers or whether their powers affects their personality. Generally, the answer is both, but it brings up interesting philosophical questions and psychological questions of how much of each, right? How much of your personality was shaped by your power? How much of your power was shaped by your personality? And is there any way to really know for sure? I have yet to see a show that takes a stand for that, and I think that's for the best. I don't think you should take a stand there because it's not something you can know, right? Nor is it something that the reader should know. It's something that should be vague. It's something that people in the story should question and wonder about and research. And I think that I should give credit to Yubel here because she does that. She doesn't say the magic is caused by how somebody is, the environment they're grown up with, or it's caused by their genetics. She says it's related to their life and nature, which leads me to believe that this is not like quirks. It's not like jujutsu techniques, chai tea. Instead, it's the idea that what somebody's gravitated towards, in real life that would be their interests, is related to their life, right? And their personality. They will be drawn to certain things. So rather than it being a genetic or fundamental part of them, it's just that what they encountered, the magic that they grew attached to and that they developed, is connected to them, right? Which makes sense in real life. Like I said, we have our hobbies, our interests. In this world, they have those, of course, but they also have their magic. Which, again, complicates the idea that her magic is connected to empathy. Why is she so empathetic when she likes killing people? When she takes joy in ending people's lives? It seems contradictory. And the only conclusion I can really make is that it's just curiosity. It's a desire to learn, to figure people out. It's this almost ravenous need to explore everything about somebody, right? It's the mad scientist who pins you down and wants to take you apart cell by cell, organ by organ to find out how you tick. It's Hanji in Attack on Titan. It's these people who are curious, they have to know. And maybe that's the actual underlying cause to her sadism, to her being a beast who, a predator. If so, that would explain why her power is so empathy based. And also why she kind of runs by the seat of her pants, why she doesn't learn these fundamentals, because she's too busy being fascinated and being strung along in a way by herself, that she doesn't take the time to learn the principles behind this magic. She empathizes, she figures it out, and then she replicates it. I could definitely see this coming back to bite her. I could definitely see her coming into a situation where, let's use the story's own context, she has a rematch against Weirabell. She tries to use the binding spell that Weirabell specializes in, but because she only replicated it, she doesn't know the ins and outs of it. So Weirabell is able to find a loophole, or it's just not as strong as is. The limitations of imitations, if you would. And Land, being as evidently quick-witted and intelligent as he is, finds a way to disarm Yubel pretty quickly by speaking her language. You'll never be able to empathize with me. And Yubel has this really interesting face. I really like this shot in a way I can't really explain to you, something about the expression and the way the hair falls over her is just it's just mesmerizing. You can just never tell what she's thinking. In a similar vein, Denken also has a pretty good poker face, but he's also very honest about how he feels. I wouldn't say he wears his heart on his sleeve per se, but I would say that he is very in tune with himself and he's confident in himself enough to not worry about what he's saying aloud. He has that self confidence, that way of carrying himself, that faith in himself, that he can speak his mind. And despite his poker face, he can tell people how he feels and what he's thinking because he's not worried. Because he doesn't have that, he has a strong foundation, right? He believes himself enough that I'm going to say what I want to say. You can do what you want with it, but I'm not going to worry about that. I'll say exactly how I feel because that's the kind of guy I am. And it's respectable. I love him even more for it. Obviously, the thing he actually talks about, visited his place 50 years ago, is still standing. How curious. Perspectives of time, right? It almost goes without saying. The idea that these things are still there. But I'll talk about that more when we actually get to the chef in just a second, actually. This ensuing conversation is as Frieren gets, right? The food is great. We'd better savor all that we can. You don't need to eat so much at once. You can always come back here next time. I thought so too, but there are a lot of times in my life where I've never had a next time. I had a flavor once and never again, for one reason or another. The chef tries to reassure her and says that this restaurant's flavors will live on throughout the generations. We'll pass it down to our ancestors. But Frieren is a 1,000-year-old mage. She, I shouldn't say calls his bluff, but points out that as somebody with experience, more often than not, this is not the case. Everyone says they'll be passed down the generations. I've seen it countless times. And then in the very next breath, they try to make their own legacy. They try to leave their mark. Ironically, by adjusting the recipes and altering that legacy, tainting it in a way. Himmel kind of shoots back. We can just find even more delicious flavors because they altered the recipes. They made something new. A new legacy we can enjoy. And of course, the chef just says, yeah, you're not going to find one better than me. Just like the bit with empathy that we had a moment ago. There are so many directions to take this that I wish I brought my notepad. This is, of course, bringing us back to the main themes with Frieren, right? About perspectives of time and about legacy and about how what will live longer than you, what will live beyond you. It seems that there are two main competing ideas here. One, that people want their mark that they leave to last on into the future, right? I want this recipe to be passed down, unchanged as it was, as my legacy, and also so we can have this flavor enduring throughout the generations, outliving me. And yet, we have the actual, what actually ends up happening, where everyone wants to leave their mark. I want to leave my mark, so I'll pass down the generations, but the generation after me will want to leave their mark too. Rather than just passing the torch, they want to light one of their own. So then that starts going down the generations. But then somebody says, hey, I want to leave my mark too. So it changes, and you could say it taints the legacy. Now, I say you say it could taint the legacy because I don't actually believe that. I don't think legacies are static, and I don't think that they are a zero-sum game. I think the beauty of this, not only in cooking, but in science and humanity in general, is that legacies are cumulative. Legacies are not zero-sum. Legacies do not need to replace each other. They're not bumper cars. They overlap, right? Legacies build off of each other and evolve in the same way that the world of science and any body of knowledge evolves with time. Through iteration, through trying new things, through standing on the shoulders of giants and trying to become a giant yourself. That is how such transient creatures like humanity, like humans, proceed, right? That's how we proceed through time. We build off our prior generations. I think that there's a beauty in things that don't change, in a recipe that has gone unchanged for generations. I don't think that beauty is diminished by the much more often case of changing it slightly as time goes on. I don't think that lessens the beauty of maintaining that recipe. But I think there is a separate beauty in watching these flavors evolve, in watching time play its course, just like how you'd have waves crashing against a cliffside, right? Forming something else entirely different. The Grand Canyon forming over millennia. You have recipes, you have these dishes that stand on the shoulders of giants, on the shoulders of giants, on the shoulders of giants. You have Earth, which has all these living creatures that would not exist if it weren't for all these different events in the cosmic scale, right? You have in the it's legacy all the way down. It's not just for living creatures, it's for the world we live in. And it wouldn't resemble what it does today if not for all these things that came before it. These flavors wouldn't exist if it weren't for these people adjusting the recipes, trying to leave their own legacy, or maybe just trying to explore the body of knowledge that they were given, rather than being content with what they had. Because if there's one thing that humans are bad at, it's being content with what they have. No, that's why they constantly explore more, right? Why we push the boundaries, why we evolve. To punctuate this whole conversation, the flavors have changed. It was altered, because of course it was. And yet, I don't have to look for more delicious flavors anymore. And in Yamada fashion, she doesn't explain why. She leaves it up to the audience. So I'll give you my take, and then you can give me your much better take in the comments, which I'll run within the next prep. But my take is that she doesn't say she doesn't have to look for more delicious flavors because, like, she's found the ultimate delicious flavor, right? She doesn't say this because she doesn't want to look for more anymore. She says this because she no longer needs to be worried that this flavor may not be here the next time I come. During the conversation with the heroes gang, right, with her friends, she mentioned that she was looking around for more flavors because she's worried that it'll be gone next time. So I need to appreciate it, but also I am worried that time will wash it away because she's seen time wash away so many things. It's funny because this isn't really fundamentally different from what I'm sure she's experienced countless times. I have no doubt that she's seen for herself a chef say things will be the same, this will last on throughout the generations, and then she comes back and it's different. But I think this time, as she's reflecting on Himmel's words and on that chef's words and on that evening, that dinner, she feels a sense of comfort in the change. When I say comfort in the change, I'm talking about a feeling of satisfaction in an ever-changing world. It's something incredibly elusive, something that I'm still trying to learn myself, but I think something that's essential to living a truly content and happy life. Just because the world is constantly changing and it's unpredictable doesn't mean you need to be unpredictable too. It doesn't mean you need to constantly be on edge and be afraid. Because the one thing that is certain in this world is the world's uncertainty. With this dinner here, she's seen once again that the chefs believing that their recipe will go unchanged was not true. It was changed. It was completely different now. That doesn't mean it's worse. In fact, it probably tastes even better now. With that discovery, she realizes that I don't need to keep looking for more delicious flavors because what I've been looking for has always existed around me. I just haven't been looking from it through the right lens. I don't need to look for more delicious flavors because just by existing, these flavors are all around me. I just need to enjoy them. Things will change. Time will wash things away. Time will change things fundamentally. I am going to choose not to see that as a tragedy, but as fundamental to the wonder of the world. That's my take on this line. It's the comfort of knowing things will always change and knowing that that's okay. because it's way better than it was before. And that's the beauty of iteration, of tweaking little things and all these people trying to leave their own legacies, right? She has the really cute like little waddle walk as she's happy. It's so cute. The character acting in this story is so great. And this is a really funny, like super simple gag of like Stark doing this training and like overlooking this hill, standing on this hill overlooking the city, and this old like karate master. There's nothing left for me to teach you. You've learned about emptiness, karate, the essence of nothingness. You, the student, has become the master. I leave you now. Hey, Stark, who was that? Fucked if I know. He just comes up here and just starts talking shit. I'm not talking shit, but he just starts saying things, rattling off on me about something about emptiness. I don't know. It's a great bait and switch. Or it seems like, oh, during this time while we've been doing the exam, he's found this master and he's been learning. But no, this guy's just monologuing, and he just keeps finding me. I keep trying to change my location and he keeps finding me. I don't understand. You attract a lot of weird people. Well, I mean, you guys are here, so there's some truth to it at least. So we find Fern upset once again. This time Stark has to try to be the mediator, which he has no experience at, clearly. That takes us back outside, back to Kana, who seems to be people watching, and Weirball, who seems to be looking for strong men. He needs a big, strong man to accomplish something. But we don't get that quite yet. We get that payoff in a minute. Malvina comes up in this super cute outfit that she apparently didn't pick and was almost literally forced into, which is kind of funny. Mom, help! But it's so cute. What you gonna do? Just let them dress you like a doll. Less strange places, how being compared to my talented brothers. Grass is always greener, right? And then another big great bait and switch in this episode. This moment where it seems to be super wholesome. You should play along. I'm gonna escort you, my lady. But if you know these characters, you know Lawini's not having any of it. So cute. So cute. Anything's fine. She definitely wants something. We get some great interactions. We get the payoff to what Weirball was looking for. Stark continues to not only attract weird people, but also continues to be felt up by people and taken off towards random quests. I love how this is just a running gag. It's just a thing that happens that you've just got to accept, and Fern's clearly accepted it. How could you? He's taking your friend away. It's fine. This happens all the time. Trust me. Absolutely great. Then we get this second flashback to the past, and it has clear thematic ties to the first one, right? Frieren asks Himmel why he helps people. He gives the basic answer, because I'm a hero. No, I'm asking why you help people. I'm doing it for myself, because I want people to remember me. To live is to be known and remembered by others, because otherwise, time will wash you away. Because the past and the future don't really exist, right? They're just concepts. The only thing that exists to us is the present. So once the present leaves us behind, the only proof that we have lived is in the memory of others. Change someone's life, even just in a small way. That should be plenty. And change lives she did. I really love this. Not only because it builds out Himmel even more as this person who's a lot more deep than he presents than a casual viewer might think. It's something we've seen before in the show, but it always deserves repeating and remembering because he is this thoughtful person and he has some great ideas. And his ridiculous facade that he puts up of his self-centeredness is just that, a mask, right? At his core, he is a hero. He's a great guy. And he gets it. You don't need to be a world-saving hero to be remembered. You don't need to write the greatest piece of literature since Shakespeare. You don't need to be the CEO of your company. You don't need to save 1 million dogs from from being put down. You don't need to solve world hunger. You don't need to cure cancer. You don't need to be this great figure, right? You don't need this to be remembered. You don't need it. As long as you change one person's life, as long as you live your life and interact with other people, chances are you will be remembered. Because if you flip the script and you try to think of the people that you remember that you won't soon forget, they've done something for you, right? Of course. You remember these things because it meant something to you. I will forget what you said to me, but I won't forget what you made me feel. So if you want to be remembered, then make people feel, and ideally make people feel good things. The Demon Lord will live on forever, but in infamy, because he changed their life for the worse. To be fair, he doesn't actually say change their life to the better. He doesn't say save people. So in a way, he's also referring to the Demon Lord here, right? Because whether you change it for the better or the worse, you will end up being remembered. Now, maybe you shouldn't change it for the worse. Maybe that's not the best way to be remembered in infamy, but you could also say that there's no such thing as bad publicity. I think for the purposes of our lives and for what value we can extract from the show into our lives, we should probably focus on the good, right? Something as simple, it can be something as simple as letting somebody into your lane when they're trying to get out of traffic or out of the freeway. It could be you waiting in a grocery line and letting somebody who seems really stressed out ahead of you because they're probably late for something. It doesn't have to be you walking on the streets and giving $1 million to every homeless person. Something as simple as, please, after you, can have ripple effects that can change somebody's life. And that's enough to be remembered. And that's enough to be remembered. And with that, we move on to the teaser of the next episode, the announcement of the second test, proctored by Senza. And apparently, she has left such an impact that Lawina and Kana immediately say, it's over. Because Senza has proctored 4 tests and never had a person pass. Despite her being a self-proclaimed and why are these two still together? I guess she's just tagging along with him until she can get enough out of him to learn his technique. So many things there, just payoffs from little jokes from within the episode. Here we get a little teaser of it, and I think the title of the next episode kind of spoiled it a little bit, but we're building a lot of intrigue around Zenza here. The fact that she's a pacifist is self-proclaimed, but I actually kind of believe her. Because she was looking down on Genau for letting all these people die when they could have promise, for being judge, jury, and executioner of them effectively. And yet her tests are almost impossible to pass. How do you square that circle? What in the world kind of a test does a pacifist create that leads nobody to pass? And how's it related to a labyrinth? Because apparently it's related to a labyrinth, because I guess I shouldn't be looking at the previews or the episode titles anymore because they might spoil things. I don't know if that's like a big spoiler. It is kind of a shame because I had this feeling of like, I have no idea what's going to happen. Maybe I should have left it like that. But it's still creating a lot of intrigue because now that I know there's like a labyrinth and it seems like there's going to be mimics and stuff, how does this connect with her being a pacifist? What is I have so many questions, and I guess I'll have to wait until the next one. So I hope to see you there. If you're as excited as I am, even though you probably know how this plays out, remember to subscribe to get notified as soon as one comes out. Also, don't forget to like the video. It really helps me out. It helps show the algorithm that you're engaging with it. Same thing with commenting. If you want to be present and you want to be the next comment of the day for the next prep, then yeah. If I really like your comment and I want to talk about it, then I'll bring it up here. If not, I will still read it. I read every single one. If I haven't hearted it, I probably haven't read it. if I have heard it, I've definitely read it. So yeah, go ahead and do that and interact with the community. We would love to see you there. And I do hope to see you there. Regardless, wherever I see you, though, until then, have a lovely rest of your day.